So Dolly, what was it that made you start your vintage shop? What was the spark?
Well, I'm absolutely passionate about vintage, and I suppose people with passions just love to share it with other people. I've worn vintage for years and years, and people would come up to me in the street, and complete strangers would say, "Oh, I love your clothes. I love your dress. Oh, you look so wonderful. Where did you get it from?" And people actually started saying to me, "Oh, wouldn't it be lovely if you sold them? Wouldn't it be lovely if we had a vintage shop
Have you
here?"
always worn vintage then, or was that something that you discovered later in life?
Well, I actually, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I found an odd vintage shop. I used to live in Bristol then, and I just always loved those clothes, so I would wear them even though vintage wasn't a particularly big thing then. If I found something vintage, I would wear it. I always had this passion for old films and old clothes, and so really it's indulging my passion. I knew it was something that I wouldn't get rich from. I thought probably not even make a living out of it, but it was something that I very, very much enjoy. In the way that an artist wants to be an artist but knows that it's difficult. Same with people who go into a career like acting. You know it's going to be difficult, but you love it. You have a passion for it, so you just think, "I'm going for it."
So you started up using pop-up shops, but then
Yes.
you said to me earlier that you took the risk of getting this place.
Yes.
So what was it in your head that, you obviously sat there at one point and went, this is a bit of a risk, and you had to weigh things up. What was it that made you go, do you know what, I'm going to do this?
Well, I think the thing that made me think I'm going to do this was I thought, basically, if I don't do it, if I do it and it fails, then it fails. But if I don't do it, I will always ask myself, should I have tried? And I felt that I would always regret it if I didn't take a chance that was given to me.
And at least try.
So I thought I would rather try and fail than not try and live with the regret.
Yeah. Are you happy that you took that risk?
I absolutely love being in this shop. I love it. I mean, and I'm never going to get rich from it. I mean, and it doesn't really make me a living, but I absolutely love it. I love the clothes parties in here. I love the rapport that I have with people, and that feeling when someone tries on the dress and it's like they're transformed into a beautiful swan, and they feel so happy, and you can see and feel that happiness for them. The pleasure that some people get is absolutely wonderful, and I love that. Words can't express really that feeling.
Yeah. One of the biggest things you've had to overcome was the floods, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
You lost an awful lot of stock and fixtures and fittings. How did you pick yourself up from that?
It was very difficult. It was very, very depressing for everybody, and yet I didn't feel part of a community. I think everybody that went through it, you almost felt quite alone, really. And I think there was a time when everybody felt like walking away from their business, and sadly a lot of people have. And I think I did feel like that briefly, but then I just thought, I started remembering the times in the shop that I've enjoyed so much, and I thought, I'm not ready to give that up yet. And I just thought, no, it's not going to, it might kick me in the teeth, but I'm not going to lay down to it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to try again.
You just loved it too much to let it go.
Yes. And I'm glad that I have. I mean, I just absolutely love it.
So is that potentially one of your biggest triumphs, that you actually got through that and you're here still now?
Well, yes, I think it probably shocked a lot of people, because I think, like, locally lots of people, think, a thing like a vintage shop isn't going to succeed anyway, and they probably expected me to sort of walk away, as lots of the other shops did. So I think it did surprise people, and maybe I surprised myself, but I'm happy that I've done it with the support, to have to say, of my wonderful husband.
Where would we be without them?
Well, he helped immensely. As I say, he's the joiner, and he's the one that put the shop together for me, because it would have been awfully difficult otherwise.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Alan Murray, yes. Prince amongst men, I have to say.
Prince.
What is the thing that gives you the most pride about being where you are right now?
The most pride about being where I am?
What when you look at your business or your shop, or when your customers are trying things on, what's the one thing that you go, do you know what, I love this, this is just amazing?
Well, as I said before, really, it's that thing that somebody tries on something, and you can see the pleasure and the happiness that they get from it.
Seeing that happy customer walking out with their purchase.
It is. It's they feel quite elated, as I think we all have that feeling. When we get something special, actually, whether it's a dress or a car, but you actually just, you feel so happy and so elated, and that's what I feel most proud about. I love that.
If you were to meet yourself when you first started, or were first thinking about starting this business, what kind of advice would you have given yourself?
Oh, what kind of advice would I have given myself?
What would have been good to know back then that you do now know?
I'm not sure if I have learnt much on the way. I think I thought of a lot of things pretty early, and I've had other vintage sellers come to me and said, gosh, I wish I had done that thing of putting on the clothes sizes on the rails, because, you know, most vintage shops won't do things like that.
Really?
And no, they don't, and actually even modern shops believe that things have to go in colour. And I said, but that makes it difficult, because sometimes when a person comes in, they don't want to look through every dress in the shop to find their size. And so I said, actually just having rows of size 12s that they can just look through that, and it makes it easy for them.
I have to admit, it's very disappointing when you find something that looks amazing,
yes,
and it's not in your size.
Yes, because actually a friend of mine who actually, it was her business, sort of setting up things in big stores, I asked for her advice, and she said, you haven't got them in colour. She said it has to be rows of green, rows of blues, rows of reds. And I said, but my dresses are all individual, so they're not going to be matching in anyway. And I said, and she said, well, people shop with their eyes. They look for a colour, so they'll go to a blue dress. And I said, but what's the point of them going to that blue dress if they're a size 18 and it's a size 12? I said they then feel disappointed, so they go to another blue dress and find it's also not their size. And that's what other vintage sellers had said to me. They said, I wish I had thought of that, because people used to come into the shop, perhaps a bigger lady, and she'd look at a couple of things that weren't in her size, and then would think, they haven't got anything in my size, so not bother looking. And you know, and we would say to them, oh, well, there are things, you know, you just have to look around. But then they've looked at 3 or 4 things and they can't be bothered, so they stop. So I did think of things like that at the beginning.
What made you think of that?
I think it was actually the very first pop-up shop we did. Some people came, and I heard afterwards that someone had said, oh, they had some really nice things but no big sizes, and we did, but they were all mixed in. So from that very first time, after that first pop-up shop, I decided to put things in sizes so that people could see that we did have things in their sizes.
That's a terrific example of listening to your customer, even though they weren't actually talking
Yes.
to you directly necessarily, but
Yes.
that's really
And I think originally I did go for near enough, or I didn't really have much new stuff. It was really all vintage. But then I did realise afterwards, again, people like vintage style, but some people don't want real vintage. Like some people don't want real antique furniture, they like new reproduction.
yeah.
And it's the same with the clothing. So I've tried to keep more variety.
So that's very much keeping the customer's perspective
Yes.
in mind whenever
Yes.
you're doing
And then
things.
sometimes people, you know, at the beginning would say, oh, do you not have any hats or do you not have shoes? And when people would say something, I would just take that on board and think, okay, I will look for that.
Well, that's a good piece of advice for any business owner, regardless
Yes.
of what you're doing, what industry you're in, is to listen to the customer.
Well, absolutely.
Key.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for letting us have a really good, I will say rummage, because Yvonne was getting right in there, pulling all these dresses out. So thank you very much.
Thank
And we
you.
hope lots of people come and visit you.
Thank you.